In the highest reaches of the Indian Himalayas, far from any permanent settlement, lies a place of profound mystery. It is a small glacial lake, frozen for most of the year, known to the world as Roopkund. For decades, this serene location has guarded a grim secret, hidden just beneath its icy surface. Every year, as the summer sun warms the peaks, the lake begins to thaw, and its secret is revealed. In the shallow, crystal-clear water, a macabre sight emerges from the depths of time. Not one, not 10, but hundreds of ancient human skeletons lie scattered on the lakebed and along its shores. Who were these people, and what catastrophic event left them here in this remote mountain grave? For over half a century, the enigma of Skeleton Lake has captivated and confounded explorers and scientists alike. Their identities were lost to time, their stories frozen in ice, waiting to be told. This is the story of Roopkund, the Lake of Skeletons, and the quest to solve its chilling puzzle. The story of the lake's modern discovery begins in the midst of global turmoil during 1942. A British forest guard named H.K. Madhwal was patrolling the remote region, a landscape rarely visited by outsiders. As he stumbled upon the shores of Roopkund during the summer thaw, he made a truly startling find. The lake was not empty. It was filled with skeletal remains, a mass grave at 16,000 feet. His face, etched with disbelief, reflected the sheer horror and confusion of the scene before him. He knelt by the water's edge, the scale of the discovery dawning on him. Who were they? The initial report sent shockwaves through the British authorities, who feared the worst. With the world at odds, the first assumption was that these were the remains of a Japanese platoon. Had a secret invasion force met its end in the unforgiving terrain of the high Himalayas? An investigation was launched immediately, but the truth would prove to be far older and stranger than anyone imagined. The theory of a lost Japanese patrol was compelling, but it quickly fell apart under scrutiny. Analysis of the remains and artifacts revealed no modern equipment, no firearms, no remnants of 20th century uniforms. Instead, the items found were ancient: leather slippers, wooden artifacts, and iron spearheads. This wasn't a modern platoon. These people had perished long, long ago. But how long? Another theory emerged, suggesting they were the army of a historical general lost in the mountains. Folklore spoke of General Zorawar Singh's army, which vanished in Tibet in the 19th century. Yet, the evidence didn't align. The remains were far too old, preserved in the cold, dry, oxygen-thin air. With every theory disproven, the mystery of Roopkund only deepened. The lake held its secrets tight. The answers would not come from history books or military records. They would have to come from the bones themselves. The key to unlocking the past lay hidden within the very fabric of the deceased. To understand what happened, we must first understand the place itself. Roopkund is an unforgiving environment. Located at over 16,000 feet, it sits in the zone where life struggles to exist. The air is thin, making every breath a conscious effort. The sun is harsh and unfiltered. Weather in the Himalayas is notoriously unpredictable. A calm, sunny day can turn into a lethal storm in minutes. There is no shelter here, no trees, no caves, just open, exposed rock and ice. The lake itself is on a pilgrimage route, but it's a treacherous path, attempted only by the determined. For the people who perished here, there would have been no escape and nowhere to hide. This brutal landscape was both the setting of the tragedy and the perfect preservative for its evidence. The extreme cold effectively flash froze the scene, locking it in time for centuries. It is this harshness that makes Roopkund both a deadly trap and a unique archaeological treasure. In the 1960s, the first scientific expeditions were mounted to unravel the lake's mystery. They brought with them a revolutionary tool, radiocarbon dating, a way to ask the dead how long they've been gone. Samples were carefully collected and sent to laboratories, with everyone expecting a single definitive date. The results, when they came back, were anything but simple. They were completely bewildering. The tests indicated that the skeletons weren't from a single event. They dated to around 800 AD. This placed the event firmly in the medieval period, long before any of the historical armies proposed. This discovery eliminated all previous theories but created a vacuum of knowledge. Who were these medieval travelers? The initial dating seemed to unify the remains into one group, one single tragic pilgrimage or journey. For years, this was the accepted story, a single catastrophe in the 9th century. But Roopkund had not given up all its secrets. The most shocking discovery was yet to come. Decades later, with the advent of advanced DNA analysis, scientists returned to the Lake of Skeletons. Ancient DNA, or aDNA, allows scientists to read the genetic blueprint of people who lived centuries ago. They took samples from dozens of individuals, hoping to learn more about the 9th century pilgrims. The results of the 2019 study were astounding, shattering the single event theory completely. The skeletons were not from one time period, they were from two, separated by 1,000 years. One group did indeed date to the 9th century, but another, distinct group, dated to the 19th century. This meant that Roopkund was the site of not one, but at least two separate mass casualty events. The genetic story was even more complex. The individuals came from vastly different parts of the world. The 9th century group was mainly of South Asian ancestry, as might be expected, but there was a surprise. The 19th century group had Eastern Mediterranean ancestry, possibly from Greece or Crete. How did they get here? The DNA results painted a picture of incredible diversity. Let's look at the larger, older group first. They were people of South Asian ancestry, consistent with pilgrims or locals from the Indian subcontinent. Even within this group, there was diversity, suggesting they came from different communities. This fits the profile of a large pilgrimage, where people from many places joined together for a sacred journey. But the second group, from the 19th century, was the real puzzle. Their DNA pointed to the Eastern Mediterranean. How did a group of people with ancestry from Greece or Crete end up in this remote Himalayan spot? They were not related to the earlier group, and as yet, there is no historical record of their journey. Were they merchants, explorers, or something else entirely? Their presence is a complete historical anomaly. The lake had taken two very different groups of people, 1,000 years apart, and given them the same fate. But while their origins were different, the cause of their demise might have been terrifyingly similar. With the who and when becoming clearer, scientists turned to the how. What event could be so sudden and final? A clue was found on the bones themselves. Many of the skulls had distinct, unhealed fractures. These weren't injuries from a conventional altercation. They were short, deep cracks, mainly on the top of the head. The pattern of trauma suggested that blows came directly from above, striking the head and shoulders. This led to a terrifying but plausible theory. The groups were caught in the open by a sudden, violent hailstorm. Not ordinary hail, but massive, cricket ball-sized chunks of ice falling with lethal force. With no shelter available in the exposed terrain of Roopkund, such a storm would be a death sentence. The people would have been struck down quickly, with the blows to the head being the cause of their demise. The bodies would then have been covered by snow or slid into the lake, where the cold preserved them. This single brutal force of nature could explain what happened to two different groups 1,000 years apart. Amazingly, this scientific theory resonates with ancient local legends passed down for generations. The area is considered sacred ground, home to the powerful mountain goddess Nanda Devi. One legend tells of a king who angered the goddess by bringing dancing girls to her sacred domain. The outsiders, with their boisterous celebrations, defiled the holy ground with their behavior. In her fury, the goddess rained down destruction upon the entire party, leaving no survivors. The legend says she flung iron balls from the sky as hard as stones. Could this folk memory of iron balls be a description of a monstrously large hailstorm? It's a stunning convergence of modern science and ancient oral tradition, telling the same terrible story. The goddess's fury was, in reality, a freak meteorological event, deadly and sudden. The legend served as a warning, preserving the memory of the mountain's power for over 1,000 years. So let's piece together the story of the 9th century group, the larger and more genetically diverse party. DNA evidence suggests they were composed of two distinct genetic populations, even within the broader South Asian ancestry. One group appears to be a closely related family or clan, suggesting they traveled together. Isotope analysis of their diet shows they ate better, suggesting higher social status. These were likely the pilgrims. The second group was not related to the first. Their diet was less varied, suggesting a lower social status. These individuals were likely local porters or guides, hired to lead the pilgrims through the treacherous terrain. This paints a vivid picture of a well-organized expedition, a mix of devout travelers and seasoned locals. Men and women, pilgrims and porters, all united by a common journey towards a sacred destination. They were likely following the Nanda Devi Raj Jat, a pilgrimage route that passes Roopkund even today. They were close to their goal, but unknowingly walking towards a fatal encounter with nature's fury. The 19th century group remains the most perplexing piece of the Roopkund puzzle. Who were they? Their DNA points to the region of modern-day Greece. They were a world away from home. Unlike the earlier group, these individuals were more genetically homogeneous, suggesting a single family or small community. There is no evidence they were traveling with local guides, which might have been a fatal mistake. What brought them to this incredibly remote part of the world in the early 1800s? Were they adventurers on a grand tour, or perhaps a family searching for something or someone? There are no records, no diaries, no local stories that mention this strange party of foreigners. Their journey's purpose is a complete blank, a ghost story written only in their genes. They too, it seems, were caught unaware by the mountain's sudden, violent temper. Their presence adds a layer of global mystery to Roopkund, connecting this Himalayan lake to the distant Mediterranean Sea. Let us imagine that day in the 9th century. A large group of over 200 people approaches the lake. The air is thin, but the sky is clear. They are tired, but spirits are high, so close to their destination. The local guides might have noticed a subtle shift in the wind, a strange color in the sky. Suddenly, the temperature plummets. Dark, bruised-looking clouds boil over the mountain ridges with unnatural speed. Before they can react or find cover, the first stones of ice begin to fall. Panic erupts. There is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The open valley has become a trap. The hail grows larger, harder. The sound is deafening, a relentless drumming of destruction from the sky. People try to shield their heads with their hands, with packs, but it's no use against the barrage. In a matter of minutes, it's all over. The storm passes as quickly as it arrived. Silence descends on Roopkund, broken only by the wind. The ground is littered with the fallen. After the storm, the bodies of the travelers lay in the freezing cold of the high-altitude environment. Winter snows would have soon covered the site, entombing the scene in a thick blanket of white. The extreme cold and thin, dry air halted the normal process of decomposition almost immediately. Over the seasons, some of the remains, pushed by avalanches and meltwater, would have slid into the shallow lake. The frigid water offered another layer of perfect preservation, protecting the bones from the elements. For over 1,000 years, the lake held them in its icy grasp, a hidden tomb unknown to the world. Flesh and tissue eventually vanished, but the cold preserved even scraps of leather, wood, and hair. Each summer's thaw would offer a fleeting glimpse of the tragedy before the winter ice reclaimed it. This cycle of reveal and concealment continued for centuries, feeding local legends and keeping the secret. A perfect storm of tragedy and preservation, creating one of the world's most unique archaeological sites. Beyond the bones, the artifacts left behind provide an intimate look into the lives of these travelers. Perfectly preserved leather slippers, their stitching still intact, speak of the journey their owners took. Bamboo staves, likely used as walking sticks on the treacherous mountain paths, were found in abundance. Wooden bowls, perhaps used for their final meal, lay scattered amongst the other remains. Researchers even found traditional wooden umbrellas, a futile defense against the storm that befell them. These personal items transform the skeletons from mere specimens into real people with stories. Glass beads and metal jewelry suggest some of the pilgrims were relatively wealthy and adorned for their holy journey. Each object is a frozen moment, a tangible link to a day of celebration that turned into tragedy. The lack of 19th century European artifacts is also a clue, suggesting that group traveled light or their items were lost. These silent witnesses help scientists piece together the narrative that the bones alone cannot fully tell. The skeletons do more than just tell us how these people perished. They reveal how they lived. Analysis shows that, for the most part, the individuals were remarkably healthy before their demise. They were generally tall and robust, not showing signs of malnutrition or chronic illness common in ancient populations. This supports the idea that the 9th century pilgrims were of a higher status, well-fed and strong. The local porters, while also healthy, show skeletal markers consistent with carrying heavy loads over long distances. The group included both males and females, and a range of ages from young adults to middle-aged individuals. The absence of very young or very old individuals suggests the journey was too strenuous for them. The Mediterranean group from the 19th century also appears to have been in good health before the event. Their good health makes the story even more tragic. These were not weak people succumbing to the elements. They were strong individuals, defeated not by exhaustion, but by an unpredictable and overwhelming act of nature. Despite these incredible breakthroughs, many questions about Roopkund remain unanswered. The research is far from over. For the 9th century group, what was the specific pilgrimage they were on? What was its purpose? While the Nanda Devi Rajjat is the leading theory, no definitive proof ties them to that specific ritual. And the mystery of the Mediterranean group is almost entirely unsolved. Their story is a blank page. Why did they travel so far? Who were they? And did they know the dangers of the path they chose? There was also a single individual of East Asian ancestry found. Who were they, and who did they travel with? Each new discovery seems to open up a dozen new questions, deepening the enigma. Future studies may analyze more genomes or use new techniques to study the artifacts left behind. Perhaps a lost text or a forgotten local story will one day surface, shedding new light. For now, Roopkund continues to challenge us, a testament to the enduring mysteries of the past. This incredible window into the past is now under threat. The very conditions that preserved it are changing. As global temperatures rise, the ice and permafrost that have protected the remains are melting at an accelerated rate. Once exposed to the air and fluctuating temperatures, the bones and artifacts begin to degrade rapidly. The other major threat is human. The lake's fame has turned it into a popular, if morbid, tourist destination. For years, visitors would handle the bones, move them, and even take them as gruesome souvenirs. This contaminates the site for future scientific study and disrespects the remains of the deceased. Every bone moved or taken is a piece of the puzzle lost forever, a word torn from the story. Efforts are now being made to protect the site, to balance tourism with preservation. But the remote location makes enforcement difficult, and the environmental changes are relentless. There is a race against time to learn what we can from Roopkund before its secrets melt away. Beyond the science and the mystery, it's crucial to remember the human story at the heart of Roopkund. These were not just specimens, they were people with hopes, fears, and families on a journey of faith or adventure. The 9th century pilgrims were undertaking an arduous trek, a testament to their deep devotion. They faced the dangers of the Himalayas willingly, seeking spiritual fulfillment in a sacred place. The local porters were husbands, fathers, and sons, using their incredible mountain skills to support their families. Their final moments, shared with the travelers they guided, were spent in a place of harsh, impartial beauty. The 19th century travelers, so far from home, remain a heartbreaking enigma of exploration gone wrong. We may never know their names or the exact purpose of their quest, only its tragic conclusion. Roopkund is their final resting place. The scientific quest to understand is also an act of remembrance. By telling their story, we give them back a small piece of the identity that the mountain took. So the story of Skeleton Lake is more complex and more fascinating than anyone first believed. It is not one story, but at least two, separated by 1,000 years of ice and silence. In the 9th century, a large group of South Asian pilgrims and their local guides met their end here. Then, a millennium later, a small, enigmatic group with Mediterranean heritage suffered the exact same fate. Both groups, despite their different origins and eras, were caught in the open by a sudden, lethal hailstorm. The trauma on their skulls, long a source of confusion, became the key that unlocked the how. Local legend, once dismissed as folklore, proved to be a startlingly accurate memory of the mountain's destructive power. Science provided the data, but the legends provided the soul, a convergence of knowledge across time. And yet the complete story of the Mediterranean travelers remains a tantalizing and unsolved mystery. Roopkund is a chilling reminder that some places on Earth remain wild, powerful, and indifferent to human ambition. The skeletons of Roopkund have rested in their icy grave for centuries, holding their stories close. Through science, we have begun to listen, to translate their silent testimony into a coherent narrative. We have learned of their origins, their health, and the terrifying, random event that ended their journeys. But the story is incomplete. The full truth remains just out of reach, locked in DNA and artifacts. This fragile site is a library of human history, written in the most personal medium of all. It is our collective responsibility to protect it from climate change and human interference, so that future generations, with new technologies, can continue to ask questions and listen for the answers. The Lake of Skeletons is more than a morbid curiosity. It's a profound lesson in history, science, and humility. It reminds us of the power of nature, the fragility of life, and the incredible resilience of the human story. A story that, even after 1,200 years, is still waiting to be fully told.